What is up, Contractor Kings? Today we're going to be talking about market manipulators. We're going to go deep into a subject that nobody really is talking about because probably they don't have the understanding, but I want to equip you with this understanding to be able to, have more certainty in your business, right? Go from uncertainty to certainty, to change your reactiveness to proactiveness, right? When we are being affected by things that are outside of our business or even inside of the business, we tend to respond emotionally to them, and that always leads to bad decisions. So by having the know-how and the information of what you can expect, you'll be able to take the actions that are required on the front end, right, up front. So basically the results that you're going to be getting are going to be much better, right? We're going to be starting out with better assumptions because you understand the market, and then you'll be able to forecast better. And obviously all of it leads to faster, better, and more empowered decisions, because that's what we do as business owners, right? We want to minimize the downside and basically have more of an upside in what we do. All right, so this is going to be a little bit of a different format of a video. I want to work less on editing these videos, and I just want to get the content out. The more time I spend on actually doing highly produced content is actually less time that I can spend on my clients. So that is not a good deal for me. So I do want to get that information out in a way that is, gets the information across. It's not your TikTok. It's not going to be flying things around. It's not going to be a lot of animation. If you feel the need for that, go on TikTok and waste 3 hours. Otherwise, stick around and you'll get something that you are not going to get in any other place. A little bit about me. I'm Edward Boca. I'm the CEO of Contracting Empire. I'm happily married with 2 kids. I live in the Canary Islands. I actually started out in construction for 17 cents an hour. I'm really crazy about marketing, human behavior, psychology. I built anything that you can imagine, from online games to, software, CRMs. I had a software as a service business. I'm a huge systems guy, and I know how to code. I know all these things, and I actually am using all of that insights and basically bits and pieces from all of these past experiences to put them all and combine them into a product that is for contractors, right? For marketing for contractors. And that's why we do things completely different here at Contracting Empire. Nobody else can do what we do because nobody has the understanding that we have, right? So we built over 200 contractor websites in the past 2 years. Basically, in short, we're just helping contractors with marketing so they get the freedom to do whatever they want to do. And why am I doing this, right? Everybody has this super fancy why. At the end of the day, why do you sell to the homeowner, right? Like at the end, or why do you offer your services to the homeowner? I totally understand the whole angle of, I want to bring back the respects to the trades, and I want to elevate the space and all of those things. I think those are very noble whys. But at the end of the day, you want the homeowner to buy from you, right? That's the same thing that I want from you as well. I want you to buy from us. I want you to become one of our marketing clients, and not go with these agency bros or other people that are unfit. And quite frankly, we've seen hundreds of businesses that have been, screwed over by these agency bros. They just come and they talk a nice game, but basically they don't deliver anything. So yeah, that's what I want from this. I want you to have a better understanding of your market and all of these things. So when you have that information and you have the knowledge and you're more equipped and you're making more money, obviously maybe at one point we're going to end up working together. So that is the full disclosure thing. Now let's dig into it, right? So first things first, you need to understand that absolutely everything is connected. Everything is interconnected. It doesn't matter. Marketing, market, all of it. Like in reality, like your business isn't just, marketing or just sales or just fulfillment or just operations. It's basically all of them combined, and they're all intimately interconnected, right? What would happen, for example, if one of your suppliers can't supply the product that you use in building and doing the build outs? That's a huge problem, right? So you are basically dependent on a material supplier, right? Doesn't matter what it is, if it's a lumber yard or a tile store. At the end of the day, you are dependent on other things. So literally everything is interconnected, and the tile store is interconnected, and they have a problem maybe with shipments or something, right? Like I remember when there was the huge bottleneck of ships, right? Like they were not getting fast enough import, and there weren't enough trucks to get the products moving around the country, right? So huge, everything is super interconnected, and that's why you may feel sometimes that you're losing control. And that's basically it, right? Like you can't control most of it. Like you can't control probably 95% of it, but having this knowledge is gonna bring you power that you never had, right? So you will have the knowledge to make those better decisions and forecast better, just to have the awareness of what you can do. So I'm going to kick this off with a concept that's called the circle of control. Maybe you have heard of it. Basically, we're talking about 3 circles. Basically, in the circle of control is everything that is under your power to control, right? So these are things that you can do and you're in direct control of. Then we have the circle of influence, which is outside of the circle of control. So these are things that you can influence, but you can't control directly, right? And then we have this poop color circle of concern. This is where dreams go and die, right? Like there are things happening outside of us, our business, outside of our circle of influence. We can't really do anything about it. For example, like politics, like unless you join politics, like it's just something in the circle of concern. You are concerned about that thing, but you can't influence it and you can't control it, unless you join a political party and, become an active representative for your, how do you call it? For your party, right? So now that we know this is super important, right? So keep this in mind. Basically, circle of control is what we can control. Circle of influence, what we can influence but can't control. And circle of concern is basically where dreams go and die. So let's dig into it. Now, let's talk about location-dependent factors, right? So when we're talking about market factors, let's talk about location. So location is one of the biggest factors that is going to affect how much money you make with your contracting business, right? Because you do not operate in a void. So you sell to someone, right? So you've got people in market. You've got people that want your services, or maybe they don't want them yet. And the biggest 2 pieces of the people in market is the number of people and the buying power that those people have, right? So for example, you may have noticed that there's a huge difference between urban and rural marketing, right? Because it's just the difference in the number of people and the buying power of what people have, right? And we built some tools. So if you go to contractingempire.com, and I'm going to remove my face from here. If you scroll down to the bottom in the footer, you will see a few tools. So we can actually take a look at best cities to target as a contractor. All right, so let's take where here we have a Beverly Hills zip, right? So in a 20-mile radius, we have a ton of cities, right? So we have here Los Angeles with a population of 2.4 million people, at least in that selected area. Like we have a lot of people that we can market to. And those people also have buying power, right? So over 9% of the population, or even in Glendale, like you've got 13% of the population making over $100,000 a year. So how easy do you think it is for these kind of people to afford, like remodeling services? They are going to afford remodeling services way, way easier than someone in, I don't know, let's say Fort Wayne, for example. Let's see, Fort Wayne zip. Let's just grab one from Indiana. Right, and if we put this in this tool, so this is this tool we built, and it's a very powerful tool. We use it all the time. You'll already see that there are way, way less cities around Fort Wayne, right? And if we scroll down, we can actually see that the buying power of these people, like the highest population, if before in LA we had 2.4 mil, now the biggest city here is 320,000, and all of the rest of the cities are really, really small in terms of population. And the buying power isn't that great, like it's less than a quarter of some of those locations near LA. So very, very important when it comes to our marketing, right, is to assess if there are enough people in your market, and if they have the buying power, and basically what can you do up front to actually make your marketing more better, right? How can you reach those people, right? Sometimes you need to get creative. Sometimes you can, bring more services to the table. So you can basically have the same amount of pool of people, but now you're offering them multiple services. So obviously that is a way in which you can scale rural business, right? So, and then, if the buying power is lower, you could offer, for example, financing, or, you can become creative with your pricing. You can set up all sorts of things so you can get people to buy higher end products, right? And services. Obviously, by design, you will see that there's a huge difference between pricing in California versus Indiana, right? Like it's going to be a huge difference in pricing. Maybe you're going to be selling a kitchen in California for 80,000, and you're going to do it in the same kind of kitchen with like 60,000 in here, just because people can't afford it, right? So this is just one of them. I'm going to leave a link to this tool in the description of this video. But basically what happens is that this is how you can establish the number of people and their buying power, right? And if you're in a really, really bad place where you've got like all of the cities around you are at like 10,000 people and the buying power isn't there, obviously you always have the option to move, right? Sometimes I talk to contractors and I present the situation for them. They don't want to change the situation in which they are, and they don't want to move. They're not thinking about it because, they have an attachment to the place. You can do that, but obviously you have to be aware of what that means for your business, right? If there are only, let's say, 30 people in market every month looking for your services, that's basically the cap where you'll be able to scale that business, right? Then we'll talk a little bit about creating an assessment for how many people are in market looking for your solutions, right, as well, later down in the video. Then we have psychographics. This is basically how do people think about things, right? Is it really on top of their mind? Like, are they, really worried about getting their kitchen remodeled or, bathroom remodeled or whatever it is, or having their landscape done? Does it keep them up at night? Or what are they thinking about? Like, for example, maybe if you've got a huge backyard, but you don't have a fence, and they're constantly concerned that their dog is going to run out and is going to be run over by a truck or whatnot, right? Or the kids, they can't let their kids in their backyard because there's no fence and they can run into the street. That's a huge problem. It's a huge pain point, and is going to make those people in market be more receptive to your marketing message and to what you have to put out. And then we have the level of awareness. How aware are they of what they need, of how much they need your services or a service, and how close are they to actually making that buying, how close are they to that buying decision? I actually have a video that fully breaks down the whole awareness cycle and kind of what are the marketing channels that you can target people based on the awareness level. I'll try to figure out YouTube to actually leave a link to it or show it as a card in this video. So that is a huge one, right? People in market, like you could want to sell a super fancy, service to people, but if there are not enough people wanting to buy that thing and they do not have the buying power, they will not be buying your thing. It's just that simple, right? So it's going to be harder to sell, Rolexes to rednecks than it is to sell to people in, New York, right? Because status is played out differently as well, right? So there are different psychographics and behaviors that people have depending on location, right? So that is super, super important whenever we dig into a business and do marketing on it. We really look to understand deeply what is the buying process of those people in that specific market, because like I hear people tell this all the time, like, oh, people buy like us. This is just BS. It's not a thing. It doesn't happen like that. Other people don't buy like you, right? Like, for example, I do not buy probably as Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates buy. We probably have different buying patterns. So and they probably don't buy like I do either. So that is just very wrong. Somebody that has, $1 million cash in hand available to spend is going to be spending that money differently than somebody that has, $100,000 in debt. It's just, different. So you can't, that is a very huge fallacy that I hear all the time. Well, people are like us and they buy like us. No, they don't. Everybody buys differently based on their own unique situation. And this is what you do when you dig deeper into understanding what the people in market, those people in market are, what do they want, how can you reach them, and what actually can you sell them as a service or product so you can get money from them, right? And then the other big piece of the location dependent factors is competitors, right? Like you do not operate in a void. There's no void. It's not, hey, I'm the only one. Maybe in a rural area, right? That is a huge advantage of rural areas. Usually competition is very, very low in rural areas. So you can dominate and become the go-to leader very fast, but you are going to be dealing with the number of people in market being smaller. Right now, when you go more towards urban areas or highly populated areas, and also wealthy areas, you are going to be hit by a bigger number of competitors. And now, sometimes it doesn't really matter how many competitors you have if they are completely clueless. So we have a client in Reno, and there's a population of 200,000 people, and their competitors are not even trying, right? So I could figure out right from the get-go when we were looking at their numbers and kind of their situation and where they are, right? When we ran an audit on their account, we figured out right from the get-go that their competitors aren't doing anything. So basically, this is the best time for them to move into the market and make some waves. They did it. Now they're at, I don't know, they're projecting, I think 2 mil this year. I don't want to tell a fib, right? I'm not sure, but they were somewhat like at 500 or 600K last year, if I remember correctly, right? And so how proactive they are and what's their investment in marketing, right? So we have clients, for example, in Virginia, and it's a huge market there and a lot of people, and it's like it's a bloodbath, right? In competitors, and they're super proactive, right? So as much as we can try, so we have clients there, and even if they're on the gold plan, which is 3K, right? It's very difficult for us to get them wins when basically their competitors are spending 10 times the amount of money that they're spending, right? So we're trying and we're doing all our best to get them wins, but in a super highly densely populated area where there are, at least, 30 competitors on a 10-mile radius, well, you've got a situation, right? And they're all super proactive and dumping huge wads of cash into marketing. We've got our work cut out for us, right? And we can assess for that, and we can kind of figure out what is going on and how can we stand out and what can we bring to the table so we can separate ourselves from those from those competitors. All right, so this is huge. So for contractors, this is like by far the biggest market mover that you can't really control, but you can really gain super deep insights into them. And now moving on to things, moving into the poop area, basically these are the things that are completely outside of your area of control, but they are in a place where you can actually leverage some of this stuff, and from some of the stuff, at least you can forecast better, right? And this is something that's in marketing, so it comes from a concept called PESTLE. And this is done by huge corporations and companies when they try to move into a market. They do a PESTLE analysis and a SWOT analysis. You may have heard of SWOT, right? Strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities, right? If you have not heard of SWOT, do a Google search for it. You'll figure out really fast what you need to do there. That's a great exercise to also do. Today, I just want to talk, because we're talking about market, I want to talk about PESTLE, right? So basically what PESTLE does is that it creates an influence in behavior of people, right? So it changes the behavior. It changes how people see the world, basically, right? And you can, adopt some of these things, and you can embrace some of this stuff, or you can try to avoid it and whatever it is, you have to look at the information, not get emotional about it, don't get too attached to it, and basically then do whatever stands in your power to help yourself to leverage, all of these environment dependent factors. So PESTEL stands for political, economical, social, tech, law, and environment, right? So there are these 6 factors that are completely outside of your business, or not really outside, but they influence everyone, right? So they influence both you and your business as well as your buyers, right? So this is a all-encompassing thing that influences basically all people in a market, right? So let's talk a little bit about the political scene, right? So for example, the war in Ukraine, you may think it's not affecting you, but it is, right? Because there's money that goes out to Ukraine that doesn't stay in the country. There's, corporate lobby. There's, for example, policies like banning of TikTok, right? If you've got a very, very active TikTok account and then the government shuts down TikTok, you're out of an asset that you've built and you've spent time on it, right? We don't even yet know what are the implications of Brexit, right? We don't know what's going to do to trading, and we're not even seeing the negative effects yet of some of these political agendas and political movements. Or, what happens in China, right? The increase of the middle class in China, all of these things all of these things that happen politically will eventually have some sort of impact on your business. But the thing is that what you need to be doing is to become aware of the fact that all of this stuff is outside of your area of control completely. You can't even, influence it. It's completely out. So you have to even take a stance that's outside, right? You have to figure out that, hey, it's not in my area of control, so I need to let it be. I can just take some insights from this and move on. Because if you become really engaged in this, and you can get engaged, you can see that there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. There's a lot of stuff going on in the US, agendas being pushed and so on and so forth. The whole point is for all of it to keep you busy, so you are not focusing on the right things and you're just focusing on basically everything that's outside of you, which you can't control anyway. So why do it anyway, right? Then we've got the economic factors, which, if people have recession concerns, obviously they become more restrictive with their spending, right? They don't want to get that kitchen remodeled. They're going to push it off for 3 years to kind of see, okay, what is going to happen? Is the recession coming or not? Right? We're seeing the de-dollarization of the US. We're seeing that people are starting to move away from the USD as a trading currency, right? That's a huge problem. You're not going to see it today, but it is going to roll out in the next years, right? And we can see this pressure. Basically, we can start seeing how all of these are connected, right? Because there's pressure from China, and China is creating some trade partners and so on and so forth that end up creating an economic dependency, right? Is making an economic change and moving towards that de-dollarization and so on, right? The printing of money, right? Raises of inflation, of interest rates and all of that stuff. The bank bankruptcies, real estate, are the prices going up, down? What are the mortgage rates and so on and so forth? Can you get a loan? Can you not get a loan for your business? And all of these things are huge factors in what you can or can't do for your business and make it successful, right? And there's the income disparity, right? You've got the top 1%ers that are basically buying up all of the smaller businesses, and we can see that in the contracting space as well. Like we see Leaf Homes and all of these other global brands, basically Renewal by Anderson or whatever it is. In any of these contracting spaces, there's a leader, and they're just eating everyone up because they have that money and they have that income disparity card to leverage. And then you've got social influence, right? People are worried about food insecurity or, in-store theft. Like you would think that's, the fact that those people there are stealing from the shops and they can get away with it, you're safe. But here's the problem. Who are they stealing from, right? So, for example, that shop owner, maybe they had $200K set aside for their home edition, and now suddenly they can't do their home edition because they just got robbed and their windows got broken and they have to reinvest that 200K back into their shop. So it may not influence you now on a small scale, but it does eventually, right? So it's very important if you can change any of these things, become an active participant in politics or whatever it is to make those changes, unless just, otherwise just stop talking about it. There's literally no point, because it's completely outside of your area of control, right? But it's something to look at, right? If there's a lot of theft going on around you, maybe it's just time to move. Maybe it's not a good place to run a business. Then you've got all of these activism things and diversity and inclusion and gender fluidity and all this bullshit. Like, if there's anyone that's telling me that there are more than two genders, they'd like, please leave this video right now, right? So, we have males, females, like, let's just end it there, right? And you see all of these, social things, like there's a huge uproar now with the Southern Freedom. Like, basically, I know our and that organization, like, we're trying to normalize pedophilia. We're like, what the hell, right? Like, what? Like, they are people attracted to minors. They want to change the name of pedophilia. That is a huge political push. That is something, because they're all rotten to the core, right? Or at least most of these people, they don't want to go to jail for 20 years because they're freaking pedos. So I think some of these are good things that are happening, at least in terms of awareness for us as humans. At the same time, again, it's outside of our area of control. If you really want to do something, for example, you can donate to our, right? So Operation Underground, right? You can donate to these causes, and that's basically all you can do. Just getting riled up about it doesn't do anything. So go watch the movie, donate to their cause, and move on, get back to your business. So then we go to the tech, like we have this huge rage in AI, but think of, for example, of the access to tech, right? The fact that more and more people get access to Wi-Fi and internet, and we have all of these good things that are happening, right? If people couldn't even imagine before COVID to work from home, now working from home has become a norm, right? And access to tech like Zoom and all these tools, like, it's huge. Like, you can literally do an appointment. You can do it over Zoom, right? Like, during COVID, like, the people that were smart, they were setting up Zoom appointments, right? to sell, which is freaking great. Right? You have access to the tech, right? It's very important for you to be aware that, you can leverage Zoom, you can use these tools, you can use AI, you can use these things. Think about it, right? How can you use it in your business so you can get an edge, right? These are some, like, these market manipulators, right? These environment dependent factors, the PASL in the PASL analysis, basically not all of them are negative. Some of them you can actually leverage, right? For example, digital collaboration. I'm here in Canary Islands. Most of my team is back in Romania, right? So that is how we do things, and it just creates this global environment for people to collaborate at. It's amazing, right? Because basically what ends up happening, we can offer a much better service to contractors for a cheaper cost, because people in Romania are very, very smart. So then you've got, but at the other end of the spectrum, of the negative spectrum, you've got cyber attacks, right? Those are becoming more and more frequent. Like, we invest, I think, at least like $3,000 only in the security of our servers for our clients. So we deter any cyber attacks and DDoS attacks and all of those things. So we're being proactive about these things, so the websites don't go down, right? Super important. Then, robot labor and all of this stuff, right? Self-driving cars, all of these things, huge things that can either aid, some people are going to say, well, like, I'm being laid off and I won't be able to find a solution. Other people say, oh my God, like, I can do this, I can automate tasks and processes. So what a great blessing that is for me. Then you've got drone attacks, right? Like, you can, I think we'll end up at the stage where we can just tie a nuke to a drone and send it somewhere, and that'll be the end of that, right? So it's also very frightening from one perspective, right? But it's still outside of our area of control. Like, if that I forget the name of that stealth fighter, right? Of the tri-wing stealth fighter. basically if they declassify that, what does the US Army really have, in terms of tech when it comes to flying aircrafts and stuff? It's not even declassified, so we have no idea. But you can kind of get an idea of what the US Army has in their hangars, right? And then you've got the legal stuff, right? Like privacy issues. The iOS update came out. Everybody that was, a guru in Facebook ads and advertising, they suddenly stopped being gurus because they couldn't really run ads for the life of them. They were just turning ads on and boom, Facebook was doing all the stuff. Now iOS 14 update came in with the privacy and you had to give your consent. People didn't give their consent and boom, what do you know? Like the gurus all stopped guruing because they didn't know, they couldn't understand how to actually make things work. Then, you've got worker legislation. If you've got, OSHA coming down on you and you needing to comply with some of these legal things, they cost money, they cost things, but it's better to be proactive about things and have that worker insurance and all of those things so it doesn't become a problem later down the road. And, then you've got antitrust laws, AI laws, cybersecurity laws, all of these kind of laws, everything that's pertaining to legal, again, outside of our area of control, but still things that we can leverage and use and be proactive about so you can, lawyer up, right? Like really get a good understanding of what is going on. And then you've got environmental things, right? Like weather and acts of God. We have a client in Denver. They haven't seen, this huge, massive drought throughout the years, and they've been having constant rains for the past 3 weeks. And we were talking with the client and they were saying, well, I'm not getting any xeriscaping leads anymore. Like, what is going on? Like, oh my God, where are the xeriscaping leads? Like all of these people that are calling us, they're calling us for French drains and they're calling us for issues with water piling up near their home. And nobody's going to be reaching out about xeriscaping if, it's literally raining. If there are 3 weeks of rain happening on, obviously people see the puddle in the backyard, so they now became aware of the puddle in the backyard, so they want that water to go away from the foundation of their home. They do not care about getting their landscape xeriscaped, right? Because obviously it's even raining outside, so it's not even on top of their mind, right? So your people in the market will be influenced by all of these things, right? Or emission policies or whatever, gas pricing going up, and like the war in Ukraine raised the price of gas, and many contractors were complaining about the gas prices going up and all of that. Everything is connected, like I was saying up front. Right, or maybe somebody comes out with a waste policy, right? Like suddenly you need a special way in which you can dispose of certain materials and so on and so forth. Like, for example, there are the asbestos laws, right? And how you can work in those asbestos environments and how you can do all of that so it's safe for the homeowner and all of that stuff. It just basically doubles the price of the project, right? But you have to align with those policies, right? So this is part of that of the environment dependent factors that work in the market, and all of it is basically intensified by the agendas published by the media, right? So there's this video, right? Somebody, from Deadspin, they gathered all of these videos from the local station where basically there's an agenda and everybody was reading the same prompter. So I'm going to let this run for 10 seconds. So,
false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to your contracting business, right? Because if somebody has an agenda, like even with all the LGBT, I don't even know all the letters that they have, like all of this agenda that is being pushed, who is pushing all of that agenda, and what are they taking your focus away from, right? Because at the end of the day, basically, the media has the power to really, 10x the power of all of the things that are happening in the world, right? You didn't even know about Boko Haram in Africa and the massacre they did, and all of that stuff, or it was forgotten or wasn't even shown on the media, where like hundreds of thousands of people die in Africa, right, in Nigeria or wherever they are, and you don't know, right? It's just not in your awareness because it's not in the media's interest. Because at the end of the day, basically, there are 6 corporations that are controlling all of this, right? 80% of it, right? So we've got these big companies that you've got Comcast, Disney, Time Warner, News Corp, Sony, and National Amusements, and basically they have all of these big brands that you know of, and they are producing that media and that content that is being pushed. And that is how you can get to these kind of situations where basically 50 different channels are pushing the same agenda, right? So there's just something to keep in mind, right? We are still talking about these are all in the poop area, right? In the circle of concern. It's very important to become aware of that circle of concern. It's very important to understand that these are things that are outside of your area of control, but at the same time, the fact that you are aware of them, you know how you can leverage them, right? So, when COVID came out and okay, everybody has to stay in house. Okay, well, we can sell via Zoom. Awesome. Perfect, right? That was a good use, right? When those contractors became proactive of that. So now let's go to services, right? So you also, other things that come and bleed into these influences is the option of services that you choose, right? For your contracting business, right? Because you are going to have marketing life cycles, right? So how many people are in market? So we talked about this a little bit, advertising costs and competition. Some of these you can actually figure out. So for example, what we do, if you go to Contracting Empire, also in the footer, you will have SEO for contractors by state. So I'll leave the link to this tool in the description of the video. But basically you can kind of look at some of the things that are happening, right? Like people in market, seasonality. I didn't put in here seasonality, but that's a huge important factor in this, right? So you can literally click, for example, on Colorado and choose a service, let's say deck construction. And we can now see, based on the top keywords that are for that selected service, we can see what's the seasonality, right? So we can see that there's basically very little demand in January and February, then the demand rises and then it starts tapering off starting October, right? So this is very, very good information to see, because now you can forecast based on seasonality, right? There's that cycle of feast and famine that's always happening, and most of it is predictable based on previous ways and data that you have on how seasons affect sales. Right? It's a huge, huge thing to leverage in your business, and you'll see that it's different based on location, right? So if decks in Colorado look like that, well, in Alaska, now full season isn't starting in March. It actually starts in April, because it's colder and it lasts shorter, right? Basically in September you can start hanging up your tools because nobody wants a deck anymore. Or if we go to Hawaii, for example, for the same service, now we're going to see that, it's pretty constant throughout the year. Like throughout the year, kind of people want, or well, the search volume is very, very low. So that's a big thing as well. But it's mostly constant, right? Because you've got heat more throughout the year. Well, these are very, very small searches, but looking at this, right, there's actually a bigger spike for building a deck, right? People are looking to build a deck in May, and then starting July, and it tapers off in November. So you have to look, here's the thing, here's the secret, right? You also have to look at multiple sources of data and multiple points and multiple keywords and multiple things to fully grasp and understand what is happening on that business, right? And now if we compare, like interior painting, for example, versus deck construction, we can see that the demand is different, right? So for interior painting, we can see that the seasonality is completely different. People don't really look for interior painting in March and April. Or now if we go to exterior painting, we'll see that is different as well, right? If March, April, again, no demand. Interesting, right? So I'm not sure what exactly, I don't know right now. Obviously, I would dig deeper to or ask the client, right? Like, you are the experts in your business. So some of these things you intuitively know, or because you've been in business for a few years and now you know why those things happen during those seasons. But just you becoming aware of the fact that there are these marketing life cycles and there's a fluctuation of people in market, and basically, advertising costs, how much does it cost from the same tool? If you scroll up, you'll actually see here there's bid low and bid high. All this does is basically show you the cost that it would cost for you to advertise on Google Ads, right? So for example, it's very cheap to advertise exterior painting in Hawaii versus, I don't know, let's choose, bathroom remodeling in, I know it's a bloodbath in Virginia, for example, right? So you can expect to spend between $5 to $24 to bid for bathroom remodeling. Huge difference, right? Or if we go to, kitchen remodeling, we can see again $4 to $27. Now, if we go to California, right, we can see that between 4 to 15 or 5 to $20, depending on the search volumes and so on and so forth, right? We can go to maybe Indiana and see that the cost is way lower, right, for a kitchen remodel, but maybe for a bathroom remodel it's higher because there's a higher demand and people can afford to buy it or to remodel their kitchens more than their bathrooms than their kitchens, right? You can also see the search volume. So this is per state, and this is just for you to get an idea of seasonality and how things happen in that specific state, in your state, right? We can see that 3,600 searches per month for bathroom remodeling in the whole state of Indiana. But if we go now to California for the same service for bathroom remodeling, we can see that 27,000 searches happen every month, right? So, and competition is 100, right? So it doesn't go higher than 100 in terms of competition. So we have access to this information, we have access to this data, and we can make better decisions because we know this data. We can forecast how much it's going to cost us per click. We can forecast how much it's going to cost us per lead based on the competitors, based on how much the bid cost is, and so on and so forth. And actually, Google gives us this information, so that's pretty amazing. And then, you have to be aware of these marketing life cycles and the seasonality of things. And then you have to become aware of sales life cycles, right? So how much time do you actually need until you sell a job, right? So since the lead came in, how much time does it take for you to, set that appointment? How much does it take to sell that client? How much education do they need? Do you need to sell a design first? How is that sale happening? And basically the secret is, how can you get the sale, all of these cycles, to be shorter. The shorter you can get the cycles, the faster you can make your revenue, right? So super important. And these are all in your area of control, right? Because these are all service dependent. So you are the business owner, you are the person that chooses the services that you want to do. That's why, like people say, like niche down, expand services, so on and so forth. But most of the stuff that everybody's talking about is niching down. It's idiotic. Like, for example, for someone in a rural area, niching down is the worst advice possible. Just because there aren't enough people in the market, it also depends on their goals, right? If you have a goal of making, 200K a year, that could be perfectly fine with one service, and for you to niche down to just do one service and do it well. But if you want to have a $2-3 million business in a rural area, you might as well have a ton of services, right? Because one of the ways that you can scale a business is through having multiple services. So it doesn't become an issue of niching down or up or whatever it is, or expanding your offering. It's about what makes sense for your specific business, right? That's why I like hate quick cutter solutions. I just hate when people just blurt these things out. Oh my God, niche down. Oh, do this, do this. You should be doing that. No, you shouldn't. How do you know if you haven't looked at the account? How the hell do you know what that contractor is dealing with and what is their market looking like? And what are factors in the market that are influencing the way that the business is being run? Well, you can't. So you might just shut up. That's why it's very important, right, to become aware of all these snake oil salesmen when they talk about these things. They just talk a nice game. They have no freaking clue what they're doing. These bro marketers, bro agencies. Then you've got production life cycles, right? So how much does it time for you to produce a thing? Right, if you need to order some a bathtub from Italy and it takes 6 months, that is going to bite into your production life cycle. So you might as well have other jobs on the books until that bathtub comes. Right, you can't really wait for 6 months until that bloody bathtub comes so you can move forward with the other jobs. Right, so production life cycles are super important for you to understand and be completely on top of them. Right, how many days does it take us to remodel a bathroom on average, or how much does it take? Like forecast, you have the design work. How many days does it take to perform that bath remodel or kitchen remodel? We have a client, they went deeper, even deeper than that. They basically forecasted and created a sheet. I think is bloody brilliant. Like, some of my clients are smarter than me, so I always learn from my clients as well. And they created a breakdown per how much money they're making for a service per day. And that created huge awareness for them, because they realized that even though that they were performing bathroom renovations, they were kind of losing, or they weren't losing money. Obviously, they were still making money, but they were making twice as they were making twice as much with their kitchen remodeling services, because 1 in 4 of their kitchen remodeling projects were turning into additions as well. So basically, the money that they were making per day made way more sense, right? So that is the situation in which a contracting business makes all the sense in the world for them to niche down to kitchen remodeling, with the after product being the home additions, right? If they can do it, and they have the engineering capabilities, architecture capabilities to pull it off as well, right? So super important when it comes to production life cycles to figure out how much time it takes you to do a thing, and can you cut down, right? I was talking to a client that is a painter, and I told him, like, tell your team, to figure out a way, right? You are the leader of your business, right? So you have to talk to your team and you have to present challenges to them, because otherwise Parkinson's law is going to come into play, right? So Parkinson's law says that basically the task is going to expand to the time allotted to it, right? It kind of came out with a joke. It came out as a joke initially when it was defined by Parkinson's, but it's actually very true, right? So if you tell people, hey, you need to do this in 5 days, they will do it in 5 days. If you tell them to do it in 3 days, they will start working on figuring it out on how to do it in 3 days. So challenge your team, right? Give them something to work and strive towards. Strive towards something to improve the processes, and how can they figure out stuff to make things better. And we do this internally as well all the time. We talk to the team and we challenge them, like, okay, like, you are telling me that 4 articles is all of the amount of articles that you can publish in a day? Well, yeah, because, like, it takes a lot of time and I'm involved and blah, blah, blah. Okay, tomorrow you're doing 8, or tomorrow you're doing 10. And suddenly you see that they do 8. And you're like, damn, who would have thought? Well, I would have thought, right? Because I'm aware of Parkinson's laws and the fact that I know that it's possible, right? So then I can push the team and I can challenge them. And, if they don't do it, I'm pretty sure that I can find other A players that can help me achieve what I want, right? So even for you don't have to get to be in love with some of your people, right? Some of your people are just, very, I wouldn't say lazy, but they have a matter of convenience to them, right? They are comfortable with doing the things that as they were always doing them, right? So obviously, whenever you present a challenge, it's gonna mess up a little bit with their minds, right? So that is something to take into account. Production life cycles, and basically this client, right? If because they were able to do 5 jobs and suddenly now they can do 7 jobs for the same crew just by cutting down 1 day from the production cycle. So suddenly just, more money without changing literally anything else, just by messing with the production life cycle. And the last one is operational life cycles, right? And we're talking about here about hiring, about anything that is particular to operations, right? Hiring takes a boatload of time, right? It takes a ton of time to hire good people. So you should always have in your business, you should always be hiring, always be looking for talent, always be looking for people that can help you go to where you want to go, right? Super important. It takes a lot of time, right? If your best person, if your foreman leaves you now, what is going to happen to your business, right? You're going to be basically crippled for 2 months or a month until you find the replacement. That is going to mess up completely the whole thing, because now you have on top of that, you've got the seasonality of how people are looking for services and what you can do. Your fulfillment goes to shit because your production goes has a problem because you don't have the people to fulfill. It's a huge mess. And now you have to move out from sales, or whoever's doing the sales, you kind of have to divert your focus towards this operational issue, and it all becomes a nightmare. So anything that goes into operational, automate as much of it as possible, like payments and stuff like that, how much money is going into, going into this account, that account, how you're paying off vendors, all of these cycles that are related to operations, you should be completely on top of them. So, and see if you can shorten them as well, or just be proactive about them, like in the case of hiring, so you do not end up in a very difficult situation. So let's talk a little bit about the feast and famine cycle, right? I'm going to move my face away. So we are able to see the seasonality of a service, right? So we can see how many leads are in market, and you can use this tool, right? This tool where you can actually visualize the seasonality of services. Let's go for Iowa or let's go for Texas. And let's see, are decks popular in Texas? I don't know. Yeah, so this is very interesting, right? Deck builder near me. Huge spike in March till June, and then a small decrease till November, and then nobody's really looking. I mean, nobody. It really depends on the city you're in, right? This is for the whole state. We actually go deeper than this when we do audits, and when we look at the business, we actually go in the cities that they serve, so we can get an even more accurate prediction of what is happening for that business in particular, right? So what you're going to be talking here in this feast and famine cycle is we're going to talk about seasonality and its influence on marketing, and how people approach marketing when it comes to these cycles, and how messed up it is, right? And how people act on this. And I've seen tens of contractors having the same issue, right? And it happens sometimes to some of our clients as well, and we kind of try to educate them, and this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this video, so they can become more aware as well in the process of how to forecast better based on what they see in the market. So this is the seasonalities, right? So in this particular case, we're talking about deck builder, and season starts warming up, in February. Then things go a little bit better till May, and then people go on vacations in June, July. They start returning in August. Then September has a little bit of a spike, and then in November again we go towards winter, and nobody's looking for decks anymore, right? So this is a pretty normal one, and you'll see this we see this in most of the services that are happening. There's always a dip in summer, right, when people go on vacation, and there's always a dip in the winter. So either November, December, January, or December, January, February, there's always this dip. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, depending on the state that you live in, but there's always, these two dips are always predominant, especially in services that are affected by weather, right? So for example, bathroom remodeling is a little bit less affected by these dips, but still the fact that people want to gather for Christmas and they don't want their house in shambles during Christmas is a big indicator that, you are not going to be performing too many bathroom demolitions in December. So this is the regular contractor, right, that doesn't understand this. So what they do, right, this is the leads in market, and they start spending, right? So, hey, Eddie, let's do marketing. And they start out with a great budget and everything's fine and dandy, but then, they get very few results. And they're like, well, F this, marketing is too expensive, and they start pulling marketing budget away, or they start becoming more creative. Like the first thing that always falls in the contracting businesses I saw is the marketing budget. Like that is the first one that you can easily cut, and nobody gives a crap about it because nobody understands the implications of the actual marketing and being consistent with your marketing in your business. So, once they start reducing the spend in marketing, obviously what is going to happen, now suddenly you're going to see, because you're spending less and you're capturing less of the market, you end up at phase 2. You go, well, I've got like 3 leads a month. Where are the leads? You promised me that in like 6 months we're gonna have a boatload of leads. But it coincides with the fact that people are going on vacation and that you basically pulled back your budget for your marketing, and that's a huge problem, right? They just compound. They just met. I was saying before, everything is super interconnected, right? So the leads are gone. You have no leads because there are no people in market, and you're not spending enough, and you are not the de facto leader in your area. So, take a chill pill. And then they start investing again. Well, I really need to make this work. I really need, the money now. So what do I do? Well, let's start spending. Oh, I'm going to start saving up some money, and now I'm going to do some stuff. And now they get again 10 leads, per month, that it's now probably double the cost, or it's more expensive because basically the market has shifted and now there are just fewer leads, right? If the peak here was in spring, well, there was a huge peak. Now in autumn, there isn't such a huge peak, right? The search volume has decreased overall in the market. So even though you're spending the same amount of money or spending more, basically you're getting less results because of the behavior and seasonality of the service. So what do, right? And it's people become very emotional about all of this stuff. And because people become emotional, they make very lousy decisions. And the first decision that always dies is let's kill marketing. And that's a problem. So what do you do? How do you actually do this? And how do you work with these things? Well, it's very simple. You budget, right? You set a goal. Hey, I want to make, $3 million this year. Perfect. For $3 million, if you really want to be aggressive about your marketing, you should be spending between 7 to 10% of your revenue in order to reach that goal. Cool, perfect, right? So then you set that goal and now you work toward it, right? So let's say that your goal is $1 million because that's maybe easier to work with, right? So 7% of that, if you're trying to be aggressive and capture a piece of the market and you really want to dominate your competition, that's $70K a year, which is, pocket change when you think of what you're actually getting in return, right? What is the revenue that you're making? What is the market that you're capturing? And how do you actually, here's another thing, right? When it comes to returns, when you become the de facto leader in your area, basically you are going to be able to capture 80% of the market. So this is just what happens, right? Like you end up capturing almost all of the people that are in market and looking for the services. So that is pretty wild. And that's what people don't know, right? So if you really go hard, if you really push and you're being aggressive with a 7-10% marketing budget, you can really move the world if you've got the right marketing partner. So, right, you set the goal, even if you get only like 3 leads, it doesn't really matter, right? You're like, you can see the seasonality, you can see the leads in market, and then you can kind of see what's the captured amount. You spend a lot, and then you start capturing, right? So you only start, maybe you've got 3 leads here, but now you start capturing some leads, right? And you kind of figure out, right, your spend is quite high still. And you figure out, like, I'm getting 15 leads a month. And I'm talking, like, let's say that this is a remodeling business, right? Where, maybe 15 leads a month makes sense. I'm just trying to illustrate the concept. Don't just look at these numbers as an example, right? So you're going to end up saying, I know this is expensive, but I budgeted for this, right? So what happens is now that ads start to normalize, all of the marketing channels start working together, right? They start pulling their weight and they all start collaborating. Basically, after like 6 months, all the things start to compound. And basically what happens is your spend starts to decrease, which is wild. So instead of, even if you budgeted, so we had a client, we still have that client. So their initial target, they were making $1 million in 2021. They made a mill, they cleared a mill, and we helped them do last year 3 mil, and I think they're on course to do 4 mil this year. So they jumped from 1 to 3 mil, and they knew it was expensive, but now they're basically the de facto leader in their area for the services that they provide, right? So now basically their costs have decreased a lot, and I actually have that example in the next slides where you can actually see the costs, how they decrease and how ridiculously cheap it got because they became the leader in their area for the services that they provide, right? So if we budgeted, I think 10% at the beginning of 2022, they ended up the whole marketing, like local SEO, Google ads, all of it, like literally it ended up being 3.5% because they ended up making they ended up closing $1 million more in that year. So the goal was 2 mil, they hit 3, which is insane, right? So pretty damn cool. So you're gonna say, it's expensive, but I budgeted for this, and then basically you're gonna start capturing more and more. You have a decrease here as well, right? So you're still gonna be influenced by the market, but not that much. Right? You can still capture, if you keep on going and if you're constant with your spend. I'm not telling you here your spend doesn't decrease because you spend less. This spend is lower just because you don't need to spend that much, because your ads become more optimized, because your local SEO starts to work, all of the stuff starts to compound. That's why the spend increases, not because you have to spend less. Like you end up spending less just by being consistent. And then, you end up with 25 leads a month, and here costs are being normalized, and suddenly now you've got outsized returns, and everybody's wondering, what is this guy doing that I'm not doing? We have those conversations as well with prospects, right? What is he doing that I'm not doing? Well, he spent constantly, and he invested it, and he went for it, and he was constant with this whole thing and understood this feast and famine cycle. And decided to work against it and be consistent with his marketing, not turning it on and off. Because even ads, like let's talk about Google ads, like literally you have a 2-week learning time for the ad, right? So only after like 2 weeks you're gonna start seeing some sort of leads, even with Google ads. So there's no on-off button. If everybody tells you that there's an on-off button, they're selling you hot air. So let's look at the real world scenario, because obviously it's cool to look at data and kind of see how it happens in the real world, right? So we're looking at in-market leads, right? And this is the flow of them. And you can see it here. And we got it from a similar tool to this one, where we actually looked for the in-market people for his specific area. And that's that. And then basically this one is how many leads per month. And we're talking here only about the Google ads leads. So I'm not talking about anything else. I'm not talking about the number of phone calls he got. I'm not talking about any other leads. I'm just talking about the Google leads. So Google ads leads. So when we look at how much was captured, you can kind of figure out, you can kind of see how it happened, right? So and he was spending before this, right? So he was already doing some marketing with us before this, like probably 6 months prior to September 22, which I don't have here because I didn't have the data back then, but now I do. So you can see that there's a little bit of delay in capture as well, or there's even a delay sometimes from Google showing you the information, right? So basically, he was able to capture in March more than in May, and Google is showing that, well, actually in May there were the most amount of searches. So take all of this with a grain of salt and use it just to get an idea of what is happening in the marketplace. But it's pretty much on point with what we can expect, right? So you can really do way better forecasting. And I know that you guys are dying to to know how much he spent, and this is ridiculously small from my point of view for a $3-4 million a year business, right? Basically, the spend, you can see that it's here with the green line, so I just attached it on top. Basically, it didn't matter that he was continuing to spend even during the winter months, so the ads had the budget, but Google wasn't spending that budget because, it's winter and there are no people looking and clicking on those ads. So obviously you are not going to be paying for those ads. It's very, very simple. The biggest problem that I see is contractors turning off their ads in winter. No, man, let them run, maybe decrease the budget if you really want to, but otherwise let them run. We can see that he got 9 leads, right, in December of 2022. And for a total cost of $982, so $100 a lead. But now we move on to 2023, right, which is here on top, and we can actually see that in where was it, right, in March, right, when the peak started happening, and this was his spend, right? So he literally spent in March $5,000 in Google Ads and got 100 leads, so that's like $50 a lead. But now, fast forward to that thing that I was talking about, the normalization of money, and basically because the ads have had time to constantly optimize that spend and optimize that whole thing, we ended up in May with 159 leads for $3,500, which is absolutely insane. For Google warm leads, it's amazing. So we're still talking, about I think he's on target to surpass $4 million this year. So this is what we're talking about, right? So this is how, and you would say, oh my God, I don't have the money. Really? You don't have the money. You can't afford not to do this. You can't afford not to get multiple marketing channels to work in tandem and basically get you the results that you're looking for. It makes no sense why you wouldn't be investing in basically the biggest asset that can drive your business forward. Obviously, everything is trash. Marketing is absolute garbage if you don't have all the other systems in place, right? So marketing is completely garbage if you can have all the marketing in the world. If your sales is crap, if your production is suffering, and your operations are in the gutter, it makes you can have the best marketing in the world and you're still gonna fail miserably. So everything is connected, right? That's why, for example, when we take on clients, we tell them, hey, this is a partnership. We are going to work with you, but we need your involvement in some of this stuff that we do on the marketing. We need you to get reviews. We need you to, upload photos to your GBP, take photos with your iPhone with location turned on. So Google knows that you actually perform that job in that location and so on and so forth, right? So it's not even that expensive to become rich as a contractor, and the game is rigged, right? Obviously, this is a privileged client in the perspective that when it goes back to this other part here that we were talking about, when it comes to competitors, the competitors are clueless in his industry, right? So they are not doing, they're not pushing marketing, their operations and fulfillment is suffering. They have all of the issues, they have all of the other issues that we were talking about just 2 seconds ago, right? Their investment in marketing is way, way low and so on and so forth. So it matters a lot, right? If this would be a business in Virginia, I can tell you right from the get-go that these numbers would probably be at least 10x, at least, per month. So just something to keep in mind. Obviously, we're not talking about a $3 million business in Virginia. We're talking probably about a $10 million business per year for those numbers for a $30,000 spend a month. But, it's still an investment, and it's still the game is played at another level. So it matters a lot where you're located and what services you're offering. So just a quick recap. Basically, it's all about taking back power, right? It's you getting power back for what you're doing, right? We want to be in control, right, of your marketing, sales, production, operations, all of those life cycles. You want to be protected in terms of cybersecurity and all of that stuff. You want to leverage the latest tech, right? You want to use all of these things in your business. You want to have solid contracts. Super important, right? Maybe it doesn't matter now because you haven't had an issue, but what happens when you do have an issue, right? Suddenly you end up, we have with a prospect that basically got into debt because they didn't have in the contract stipulated the change order, and they ended up paying $30,000 out of pocket, and that created a whole snowball of debt for them, and that they can't ditch till this day. So it happens. Like, have solid contracts, right? Going back to the PESTLE analysis, like politics, not politics, legal, right? What are you doing in terms of the legal stuff? And then influence, right? People talk about, this is the circle of influence, right? So this is in the circle of control, right? These things, circle of influence, right? What can you do in the circle of influence? Well, the biggest thing that you can do is basically, and this is where people talk about brand and they have it all wrong. Like, brand is basically awareness, is awareness around your business. That is all that a brand is, and obviously there are so many nuances and it goes so deep. Obviously the brand is not just the freaking logo. It's basically, how are you creating awareness in the marketplace, right? So, and this is where people get it wrong. So I'll have to link somewhere to the video about the awareness, right? People target, Facebook ads before, first doing local SEO or doing Google ads, right? They want to go for top of funnel and start nurturing all of these random people, but they end up being broke and saying that Facebook ads don't work by the time they actually gave a chance to all these things that could have worked but were more expensive up front. So influence is what you can do. In the circle of influence, you can create awareness for your brand, right? That's a huge topic all by itself. That is something that is also somewhat in your power, basically, to expand your influence, right? And then in the circle of concern, in the poopy circle of concern, is you can look at threats and opportunities, right? Assess them, see what you can get out of it without getting emotionally attached to all of the stuff that's being peddled by the media. So what are the threats? What are the opportunities? And go after it. All right, so that's it. This is how you take back power and how you can manipulate the markets and how you can leverage all of the things that are happening in the market for yourself, right? So yeah, final call to action, right? If you're spending right now more than 30K a year on marketing with no results, reach out. We should talk. We should help you to get to where you need to get to. You may have a different need, right? We're gonna actually make an assessment and take a look at your market, take a look at your services, take a look at your in-market people, and so on and so forth. See basically what we can do to help you reach the goals that you want to reach. All right, I hope this has been super insightful for you. Have an absolutely amazing day. Take care.